Hello and welcome to a new video. Today we're gonna take a look at top 10 teams with buffed Pokemon for the Open Great League. So here we go again. We're going to have now 10 teams with Pokemon that got buffed for this season. So it's not just in general teams, just based on Pokemon that are kinda new and kinda fresh. So hopefully you enjoy this one. We don't have the official Poke ratings in yet, but of course I have my own variant where like all the stats are basically changed already. So it's kinda already in consideration for this. But the meta matchup basically might be a little bit different, which you're going to see then as well. But yeah, still, if you enjoy this video, feel free to subscribe. If you don't want to subscribe, don't do so. But still, feel free to leave a like. We're going to take a look here at the team number 1. This is going to be a team that I already played last season. I have to say, this was one of my favorite teams to play, and it's just going to be better. We're going to have a team here on Talonflame. Talonflame now learning Fly as well as Incinerate getting buffed by +5 damage, which is, by the way, insane. We're going to have a Vigoroth here as our Sasop, which is going to have access to Rock Slide now, which is going to be even better for this Pokemon as well. As you're going to be able to beat now matchups, for example, like the Sableye, like also against other Talonflames, you're going to have great coverage. And so this team going to be a lot of fun, I feel like. I think it's going to be a really strong one. You could argue to go over something different over Superior. I'm not too sure about Superior yet, but I feel like it's still a very solid Pokemon to go for, by the way. But Superior, maybe you could go for something different there, maybe something like a Credilli, but we're going to have a team around Credilli later on as well. So here, this is going to be, of course, against the current meta. Those ratings going to shift around a little bit. It's not going to be too crazy, so most of the Pokemon that you see here on the screen right now going to be the main meta Pokemon still as well. But for example, I would imagine that we're going to have like Talonflame in there now as well, but we have to see. Team number 2. Speaking of Credilli, Credilli is here, and Credilli is going to look really strong. If you haven't seen my video earlier on about top 10 secret buffs, definitely check it out. Going to be in the end card as well. Is also around Credilli. Credilli is one of the Pokemon that's going to benefit quite a bit for the season because you're going to get more Lantern, you're going to get more Carbink, you're going to get more Fire-type Pokemon. All of them Credilli loves, as well as you're going to have something like a Wishcast, which you're going to be able to hit with double super effective damage, as well as something like Swampert going to be a little bit more common. So I'm fairly certain that Credilli is going to have a lot of play during this season, and I would not be surprised if we're going to see some very good teams with this Pokemon. And here we're going to have a team which is also buffed with Skeledirge, which is going to have some more favorable matchups. And in the back, you can go also for the better Pokemon of Talonflame there. But if you want to be a little bit spicy, why not go for the Alolan Marowak as a normal variant or as a shadow variant? Both of them are fine. Now with the buffed Fire Spin might be an interesting pick there as well, and should be very decent. This team would get broken down there basically by a Scrafty or the Obstagoon, but at least I have not really seen any of those recently, so maybe they're coming back. Doubt it, to be fair, with like Azumarill being a little bit better. But yeah, this is an ABB style line. I know that a lot of people don't actually really know how to play this, because I always see like the comment section for it. You kind of have to keep your lead alive. Basically, you want to swap out before like your lead is even at half health, because backline is going to be weak against certain Pokemon like Rock, or even against like Water type Pokemon. So you kind of have to keep your lead alive somewhat and use your Scalge as a stop to bait out potential answers for the Marowak in the back. This is how you play those kind of lines, just to be sure. Next one, going to be Skarmory. A classic line around Skarmory, and a classic line for most flying type Pokemon. We're going to have some different variations of it as well later on. We're going to have here Skarmory with Sableye. You can use Purified, you can use Shadow, it doesn't really matter. And then Wishcast in the back. For Wishcast as well as Skarmory, I would actually recommend you to go for the non-Shadow variants. It does seem to make more sense, in my opinion, to go for a non-Shadow variant for both of them, as they are quite bulky, and this kind of gives just away a little bit of the bulk. And maybe Skarmory does make a little bit more sense as a Shadow compared to Wishcast, because Wishcast does not really have a hard-hitting fast move. Yes, you have like something like Shadow Swampert, which is an alternative, which has the same fast move, but Hydro Cannon is just better than, for example, Mud Bomb here is a faster charge move there. So yeah, for Wishcast, I would imagine that the normal variant is a little bit better, but look at the stuff on paper here. Wishcast, of course, getting also access to Scald. A lot of the teams that are built here have actually several months that got boosted as well, which is kind of cool. So if you want to try out some cool new stuff, this might be a team for you as well here. Looks really solid on paper. Skarmory looks really good against the current meta, so going to be curious on how good it's actually going to be. You can also decide to go for the Quagsire as a Sasop as well, which would make sense, maybe even with Stone Edge for something like the Talonflame to just one-shot it, but it's up to you. Next one, going to be Poliwrath is getting both a Scald buff plus Icy Wind, which is kind of interesting. And this Pokemon looks great on paper. We're going to have a very standard line here, and there's always going to be something that's going to be a little bit annoying for you. Here, for example, if you go ahead and go for the Carbink in the back, you're going to have a double weakness to Grass-type Pokemon, but also double weakness to Lantern, which might be a little bit annoying for you. You can still deal with both of them because Carbink actually does not really have any really bad answers or like matchups in general. Like this Pokemon is still going to do a ton of damage against anything where like the rock typing is kind of neutral against. But also for Poliwrath, you can just mainly go shields down basically and just like counter through opponents, which is kind of nice, as well as you have Icy Wind for the Grass-type Pokemon later on. Greedent would be also an alternative for a Say-Swap if you don't have a Lickitung. Greedent got buffed as well with a Grass-type coverage, which would help out against something like the Lantern. But Gligar does make, in my opinion, the most amount of sense here. Going to give you coverage as well, a little bit better against something like a Medicham, which is still going to be around, but just in general going to give you also some coverage still with not Earthquake, but with Dig against the Lantern, as well as Ring Attack plus Aerial Ace for Grass-type Pokemon. Moving on. Team number 5, going to be around a Wigglytuff. And mainly his team is kind of around Wigglytuff being able to 2-shield through stuff, and in general it's still going to have decent matchups in the back. We're going to see here, it mainly going to struggle a little bit against like Poison-type Pokemon and Steel-type Pokemon. Lickitung is a very solid Say-Swap for this one. Again, you could also go for Greedent, you can also go for Diggersby, you can go for Gligar. There are a lot of different Say-Swaps that you can use for this type of team. Gligar might make even a little bit more sense here, but we're going to have again the Whiscash or the Swampert in the back because they give you coverage for Fire-type Pokemon as well as Poison-type Pokemon, which you kind of really need. So I feel like this team does make a lot of sense. Gligar makes even maybe a little bit more sense as a Say-Swap here over Lickitung, but it really depends on how you really want to play here, but still very solid team on paper as well. Wigglytuff in a 2-shield scenario can just shield through anything. It is kind of nice. So definitely a solid one here with the buffed or like the added Icy Wind on this Pokemon. Moving on, we're going to have the next team here, where we're also going to have 2 buffs in there with the Azumarill plus the Arctibax. For Arctibax, I feel like Icy Wind is only really a buff in the lead, because what you can do with this Pokemon is, like usually you kind of want to have Avalanche, because Avalanche does just way more damage than Icy Wind, but Icy Wind gives you the option to drop the opponent's attack. So if you have something in a matchup which was before a little bit tricky, you might win this in a 2-shield, you might not. Now you're going to be able to force the opponent to swap out eventually with the Icy Wind debuff, which is kind of cool. So Arctibax really benefits from being in the 2-shield scenario. And then you're going to have Gligar and Azumarill in the back, which is a really good core together, because Gligar helps out against something like Lantern, while Arctibax is a really good answer for Lantern as well, but also gives you some coverage against the Grass-type Pokemon, while Azumarill are going to provide you for some answers for Ice-type Pokemon, which the Gligar doesn't really want to face. So you can even just have a really decent core in the back, while it still kind of functions as well as an ABC line with the Gligar as a Say-Swap for you. And honestly, I feel like this team is really, really good on paper, and I think it's a really good team to run. Would definitely recommend to you. Can be a core breaker basically here for the, like the Registeel can be a core breaker for you, it can be a little tricky, but otherwise it looks like a really solid lineup. Honestly, there's nothing else where I would say that this would be really a problem for you in general, so definitely looks like one of the best teams here as well for me. Honestly, I think it's a really good team. I really like this. I kind of want to try it out myself. But like, let's take a look at the next one here. We're going to have a double poison line with Azumarill again. Azumarill going to provide you some coverage against ground-type Pokemon with the bubble, of course. Most ground-type Pokemon are part water though, so like it's going to be neutral. But still, Azumarill going to be very cool in the lead. You don't need the Hydro Pump for coverage for something like a Bastion, which you otherwise actually still don't beat, even though Bubble got buffed. But you're going to have the Clodsire, which in my opinion is the Say-Swap for this team. You could argue that you could even go for Toxicroak as a Say-Swap. I'm not completely sure about it, but I feel like the backline really fits together with it. Toxicroak having access to Shadow Ball is going to be nice for something like the Medicham as well. And in general, you see here already, Medicham gets completely destroyed by the entire team, which is kind of nice. You're going to have some coverage for Lickitung, which is kind of nice. And so, yeah, this team looks also really decent. A little bit of an issue might be Jellicent, but you don't really see it too often. So I still think it's going to be kind of fine. And yeah, for Toxicroak, you could even argue that Shadow Ball is a little bit worse than Sludge Bomb. You have to decide for your own. They kind of equal. It really depends on what you're going to encounter and what your playstyle is. Team number 8, we're going to have Whiscash and the Swampert in the lead, and again, double Flyer in the back this time around with Staraptor. I kind of want to try it out. Not sure if Fly and Shadow variant is going to be better there. Fly definitely, but Shadow Staraptor might be a little bit better for this team. Again, Whiscash plus Gligar gives you some nice coverage against something like a Lantern. Maybe you're going to even get out the Lantern with the Say-Swap of the Gligar. As you're still going to be like weak to water typing, and that would allow you to go still for some digs, which might be nice. But otherwise, you're just going to have some flying types lurking in the back. If you want to be less spicy and not go for a Staraptor, you can still go for the Talonflame, which would definitely be the better Pokemon for this one. A little bit of a trickier one might be something like a Pelipper here, where I'm not too sure how common it's actually going to be in the current meta, because I expect a spike of Lanterns in Open Great League, and so Pelipper does not really appreciate them that much. But still, Pelipper might be decent against Pokemon like the Talonflame, so we will never know until it's actually starting. So let's move on to the team number 9. We're going to have a team here with Vigoroth. This Pokemon going to be very decent now as well, with the Rock Slide going to allow you to hit Pokemon like Sableye, hit Pokemon like Mantine. Going to be very cool forward, and we're going to have more like an ABC line here as well, with the Gligar as a Say-Swap and the Gels and then the back. I feel like Gligar kind of gets a little bit more of a play, even more of a play now for this meta, I feel like, because you're just going to be so neutral against everything. That we're going to see as well. This team can be very decent. You basically have like something similar than the Arctibex team as well, where you also already had Gligar. We have a lead that can basically play out most matchups on its own. Tries to get a shield advantage, but even if you're going to encounter something like a Magikarp in the lead, you can swap onto your Gligar. You're going to be able to still have 2 answers in the back for it, but if your lead goes down, you're still going to have a solid core in the back, as Jellicent, again, going to be decent against Ice-type Pokemon, which you don't want to face, as well as Water-type Pokemon, while Gligar going to provide coverage against those Grass-type Pokemon, which is going to be very nice, as well as some kind of coverage against Electric types as well. So definitely a solid matchup there as well again, and a solid idea there for an ABC line. So let's move on to the final team for today. This is going to be a team around Tentacruel, or more actually around the Toxapex, but Tentacruel got the buff with the Scald, but Toxapex was one of the Pokemon that I had in my hidden buffs, which you're gonna see in the end card as well then again, which is going to be very strong in the upcoming meta. Toxapex is going to be weak, of course, against something like the Swampert or the Lantern, but you're going to be able to beat Carbink very easily, or like in general, you should be able to beat Carbink with this Pokemon Monster, and you're going to be able to be just very strong also against something like the Talonflame, something like the Azumarill, which you're going to see the entire time as well. You have to have kind of a Grass type in the lead in order to beat those Ground and Water type Pokemon. Here we have Lurantis, which is a little bit faster than the Chestnut. Chestnut would be the alternative. Still hope that we're going to get the low kick buff, which I suggested in a video prior as well, which would make the Chestnut a little bit better, but that's going to be it for this video. Hope you enjoyed this one. If you did, feel free to leave a like. And I'm mostly going to see you tomorrow again for another top 10 team video again for the Retro Cup, which is going to be also very interesting because we have the Retro Cup for 2 weeks straight. So yeah, go see you then. Hope you enjoyed this one. Click on the videos on the screen and I'll see you then. Bye bye.